Let us understand the concepts of common factor. Now these concepts are going to be very helpful when we start learning about polynomials and complicated algebraic expressions. Now you learned that if we have two numbers, let us say we have numbers like 12 and 18, we can write down their factors. Factors are when you multiply two numbers, you get the original number. For example, for 12, the factors are 1 times 12 is 12, 2 times 6 is 12, right? 3 times 4 is 12. So these are the factors of 12. For 18, we can write down factors as 1 times 18 is 18, 2 times 9 is 18, right? 3 times 6 is 18. So these are the factors of 18, correct? So if we want to find out the common factors of 12 and 18, what do? We just see what are common factors, right? So we say, well, 1 is a common factor, 2 is a common factor, 3 is a common factor, correct? And then we see, well, 6 is also a common factor. So all this we learned in our junior classes. So we say, well, the common factors are, so we say common factors are 1, 2, 3 and 6, right? So this is what we know already. And then we say, well, the greatest common factor is of course 6, the greatest number amongst all these common factors. Now when we introduce polynomials to you, then we could have terms which will be kind of, let me write as 2x, we introduce variables, correct? Plus 6x squared, for example, right? So we can have, well, these are my two terms in a polynomial. Now here we'll try to understand what are the common factors. Well, let us list the factors first and then we'll figure out the common factors. So in this case 2x plus 6x squared, let's look into 2x first. So 2x, the factors are 2 times x, correct? And in 6x squared, the factors are, 6 factors could be written as, so 1 is always a factor, so there is no need to write 1, correct? So unless and until we are dealing with prime numbers, we know 1 is maybe the common factor most of the time. Well, anyway, so let's look into the numbers. Oh, no harm, we can write 1 also. Okay, 6. So the factors for 6 will be 1, 2, 3 and 6. And factors for x squared means x times x. Do you see? So kind of these are all the factors, right? So amongst these factors, what we notice is that the common factors are x's are common and 2's are common, right? So we do get these common factors, correct? So I'm not doing prime factorization, right? So I'm just writing all the factors and then figuring out what are common factors. So we find that the common factor in this case could be 2 times x, right? So the combined factor, I should say, okay? 2 times x becomes our common factor. Now if 2 times x is the common factor, then what we can do is we can write our expression, which is 2x plus 6x squared, as 2x times 1, plus we can write this as 2x times, so if I divide this by 2, I get 3, x squared by x is 3. Now as you know, 2x is a common factor here, so what we will do is we'll take 2x common. So we get 2x common, we are left with 1 in the first term and 3x in the second term. So that is how we can factor the common factor from the given expression, okay? So that, I hope, kind of makes things clear what we're trying to do. So we're trying to find a common factor between the terms, and that is how we can do it, right? So when we get to this, you will also realize, just to check whether what we did was right or wrong, you can expand it using distributive property. So when you do that, that means you're multiplying inside terms with the common factor. So if you do that, you get 2x plus 6x squared, right? So that is the original term, correct? So when we expand, we get the original term. So from here, what you really see is when we are trying to factorize, we are trying to write sum or difference of terms as product of terms, correct? So that is what we are doing. So when we say factor, right? So when we say factor, it really means from sum or difference form, right? You move to product form. So products of numbers. So that is what we are trying to always figure out, correct? So that is the process which we are going to understand in more details with examples. But I think you got the concept here, right? So let me give you some examples. Let us say if we have a term like 9x squared y plus 6xy squared, then can you find the common factor or factorize as we did here? So this step is factorizing. So when you move from here to here, we say we factorize, okay? So can we factorize this? Let's try to do it. So let's check with the numbers 9 and 6. So 9 has 3 as its factor. 3 times 3 is 9, of course, and 2 times 3 is 6. So we find 3 is a common factor. So we can list that common factor like this. So we can write this as 3 times 3, and x squared is kind of x times x, and then we have y here, correct? Plus 6 I'm writing as 2 times 3 times x times y, correct? So this is just to explain you. Normally you can straight away write down the answer. Okay, so when you observe this, what you see is common factors are 3's, right? And these x's are common, and even this y is common, right? These are the common terms. So let's take them outside the bracket. That means 3xy, okay? And you're left with 3x in the first term plus 2 times, okay, this is just y, 2 times y, right? So we have 2y. So that is how you can factorize. Factoring out the common factor. Thereby, what you did was you wrote some form of the polynomial as a product. Do you see that? 3xy times 3x plus 2y. Now, as you practice more questions, you could have written directly here, right? Straight from here, we know 3 is a common factor. We can write 3. X is a common factor, x. Y is a common factor. And then you divide the first term by 3xy. You'll get 9 divided by 3 is 3, x squared divided by x is x, y divided by y is 1, so you get 3x. And then 6xy squared divided by 3xy, 6 divided by 3 is 2, x divided by x is 1, y squared divided by y is y. So you get your term. I hope the process and the steps are clear to you. Now these steps will see how to do them with different examples and then understand different techniques to factor. The basic technique is finding the common factor, and most of the time finding the greatest common factor. That's the whole idea, is find the greatest common factor so that you can factor it faster. At times we may have to factor multiple times so that we ultimately reach a stage when there are no more common factors. So at that stage we say that the process of factorization has been completed. So when we find that the terms do not have any common factor except one, of course, then we say that the factorization process is complete. Okay, so when you say fully factored, means take all the common factors and write it in product form. I hope this concept is clear. Now let's move on and do some examples. Thank you and all the best.